Chapter 4. Beans, Bullets, and Bandages. When field stripping the T-45D powered armored helmet, first unclasp the holding clamps. "Whoa!" I yelled, pushing the minigun barrels away from my face. Let's be clear. The first rule of proper safety firearm usage should be to never point the business end at friendlies. Mustang smiled sheepishly, eyes darting to me and the gun just before lowering it.
"It is refreshing to see such care around guns in one as young as yourself."
I groaned internally. Of course I knew guns. I'm a Steel Ranger. Weapons technology is pretty much all we're invested in. Crosshair was exiting the last office on his floor, adding to the items he'd already gathered into a pile that he'd been building. I don't think we're going to be able to take all this here, Crosshair," I commented, glancing at the pile of miscellaneous goods he had piled together. Just take the more valuable stuff," I added, before turning to ask Mustang if he could carry some of the loot, only to find an empty space. Why did he move so quietly? "Mustang! Where are you?" I called out, my voice echoing the halls. There was an awkward silence, followed by some strange shuffling sounds as Mustang made his way downstairs, wearing some bizarre harness. "What the hell is that thing?" The harness, neck jewelry, whatever it was, appeared to be made of solid steel.
"Why, it's a yoke, Elder,"
Mustang proclaimed proudly.
"A tool used on rural farms before they became industrialized."
The yoke looked to be heavy. I knew I'd struggle carrying something like that. Mustang seemed to pick up what I was thinking, and he burst out laughing.
"Oh, Elder, this wasn't a farm tool."
Well, obviously. It was clearly too heavy.
"It's armor."
What?
"I used to wear a wooden yoke. Funny story, actually."
Oh, please. Luna, Celestia. Not a story about something mundane as farming equipment.
"But that is a story for another day."
A small revealed smile worked its way upon my face.
"Instead, let me tell you about the story of my gun. His name is Hailstorm. He's an M134 minigun."
Naming weapons? And giving them a gender? I would call it creepy, if I hadn't seen it done by so many other Steel Rangers.
"I first found Hailstorm clutched in the talons of a dead griffin."
Mustang began walking. I moved to follow, Crosshair soon following at our heels afterwards.
The griffin was surrounded by an army of corpses, their bodies broken and splattered under the immense firepower of this weapon.
My eyes went to the matte green and black minigun, a newfound sense of respect and foreboding starting to form.
Can you believe I initially ignored this magnificent weapon? Such a young fool I was. I mean, can you believe I actually went for a plasma caster?
Wait, what? Wait. Hold up. You found a working plasma caster? Just lying out in the wasteland? I asked, looking at Mustang skeptically.
Well, no. It wasn't just out in the wasteland.
Oh, good. Clearly pony scavengers just hadn't found it yet.
I found it outside of an irradiated military base.
The greedy little pony inside of my head was salivating at this news.
All the way in the great deserts of Ponave, or was it the Mojave Desert? I forget which.
And there went any hopes of raiding nearby military bases for supplies.
Anyway, back to the story of my gun. I was levitating the plasma caster off of a dried corpse of a pony when I was attacked by ghouls.
My mind drifted back to the ghouls we encountered in the tunnels, making me briefly wonder if Mustang had to cross some of them too.
Now, these ghouls weren't just standard ghouls. Their skin was baked hard as leather, their combat armor fused to their rotten hides. As young as...
I flinched as Mustang let out a boisterous sneeze. Scuttling sounds could be made out as nearby vermin fled from their hidey holes.
Excuse me, Elder. As I was saying, a young child such as myself mistakenly thought the energy weapons were better because they're flashy.
He paused, stepping over a stack of old papers, a queer smile on his face.
Like a colt with a new toy, I decided to show off and use the one weapon I didn't know anything about. The glitzy gun misfired horribly, sending plasma spitting into the air all around the ghouls, but not hitting any of them. I panicked, searching for a new weapon, when my eyes locked onto this green beauty. I knew what to do.
Mustang paused, taking a deep breath before continuing.
I hefted him with my magic and managed to find the firing mechanism. I dropped Hailstorm the first time I used him. The sheer weight and recoil caught me off guard. I managed to prop him up on the poor Griffith's body and use him as a firing position. The ghoul's leather hides and toughened armor were nothing in Hailstorm's wrath. His purging fury tearing flesh from bone and limbs from bodies.
Okay, getting a little creepy vibe here. The seemingly plain minigun was starting to sound like a slasher villain from a holotape.
I've carried Hailstorm ever since that day.
He finished, giving the minigun a gentle squeeze. Of course, gentle is a relative term, as the metal still groaned under the unicorn's caress. It was a great story, aside from the parts where Mustang started calling his weapon by name. I reflected sadly that my weapons did not have any history. I mean, where the hell were they when I was being attacked by rad scorpions, damn it? I glanced at my shotgun, tiny in comparison, making me feel far too under-equipped. I'd have to make it bigger. Better. Stronger. Faster. I would make it the million-cap shotgun. I was brought back out of my brief fantasy as Crosshair walked past, trotting ahead of me quickly. Keep up, Elder. Or are you trying to act like an elder pony now, too? So unfair. I was just mesmerized by a riveting story. Plus, now that I thought about it, I had a huge amount of, stuff on my back, weighing me down. Muttering to myself, I followed my rangers up to the last floor. The final floor proved to be more daunting than the previous 5 or 6. Seriously, we walked up 5 floors listening to Mustang's story. The rooms we encountered on this floor had all been sealed by some sort of emergency lockdown. I was certain that I could lift the lockdown on this floor, and maybe some of the other floors, if I could access a central terminal. The central terminal occupied 40% of this floor. The rest of the rooms were built around it. We passed by a few doors, which led us into the terminal's housing room. Eerie red light seeped around the doors. Long slivers of red light illuminated the corridors as we looked for a way into the terminal room. "Any luck, Crosshair?" I asked, for what felt like the 20th time, as Crosshair tried to pick the lock on one of the doors. Crosshair just grunted in response, focused solely on picking the lock with a bobby pin and screwdriver that he was manipulating in his mouth.
Could we not just build a battering ram and break down the door?
It was an innovative solution, I'll say, but one we really couldn't apply here. That's a no-go there, Mustang. If we try and force our way into the room, it might cause the terminal systems to believe we're unauthorized personnel and just shut down. Or worse, fry the whole database, which we really don't need. I dreaded the idea of losing such potentially valuable information, especially considering the bad luck I've had recently. Picking the lock had a slimmer chance of causing the security systems to label us as hostiles. So, Mustang, what exactly were you doing here anyway? I asked, trying to fill an empty silence around us while my zebra friend worked.
Aha! Yes, about that. I was just scavenging the bottom floor for ammunition.
Yeah, that was a blatant lie. His ammo feed was bulging with belts of 5mm rounds. Seemingly sensing my suspicion, Mustang elected to simply ignore me, suddenly finding the ceiling fan very interesting. "This lock is either cursed by the stars or rusted shut, Elder. I have broken nearly 5 bobby pins while trying to pick it," Crosshair lamented, showing me the bent pins. I looked at the keyhole sitting there, taunting us with its existence. We couldn't batter it down, and we couldn't pick its lock, so that left searching for a key. "Alrighty then, every pony. Looks like we're gonna have to find that key." Crosshair groaned, planting his forehead on the door whilst Mustang looked thoughtful, rubbing his chin. "I know it'll be a chore going from floor to floor, searching for one elusive key, but we gotta do it." I wasn't looking forward to it myself, but I had to seem at least marginally enthusiastic. "All right, Rangers, fan out and search this room first." We set about our task, Crosshair investigating a nearby cubicle while Mustang hung about the door, seemingly scanning the floor. I decided to rummage through the dented filing cabinet in the corner, pulling the drawers out with my magic and emptying the decayed documents inside. I looked back to the door for a moment as we started our search, only to find Mustang fiddling at it. It looked like he had something in his hoof and was jiggling it with the lock. With a click and a triumphant cry, it opened. Holding up the key in his hoof for our disbelieving inspection, he smiled encouragingly. The strange gentle aura of light once again creeped upon him.
"I remembered I found this key on the way up,"
he said, his satisfaction nearly manifesting into physical form, while beaming at me.
"I thought I might try it out."
He tossed the key over Crosshair's head. The glittering key vanished behind one of the cubicles.
"Come, friends, we have a terminal to heroically hack and extract data from."
I trotted after the green pony, Crosshair pausing and glancing back at the row of cubicles. "Coming, Cross?" I asked. He looked lost in thought. "Hello? Equestria to Crosshair. Do you come in, Crosshair?" The zebra stallion's eyes focused on me, before glancing over his shoulder. "You go ahead, Elder. I want to check the desks in the other cubicles." I shrugged, giving Crosshair a mock salute, and quickly followed Mustang. The terminal room was illuminated by red processor units taking up the center of the room. We were a floor above them on a little walkway that went around the towering processors. Mustang was over by a solitary terminal, a focused expression on his face as his magic engulfed the keyboard, trying to hack the terminal.
"Elder, I am ashamed to say this devious terminal is beyond my ability to master. Perhaps you could have better luck."
He stepped back from the machine, looking at me expectantly. Believe it or not, I'm actually pretty good with terminals. You learn a thing or two whilst erasing or copying data from holotags or dealing with the pesky pre-war viruses and malware. I cracked my hooves for show as I stepped in front of the terminal. I tapped my hooves lightly on the keys, being careful due to the weight and width of my armored hooves. The screen changed several times as I went through menus, until getting to what is commonly referred to as the hacking menu. 2 columns filled the screen with rows of gibberish, words scattered in between. I tapped the keyboard tentatively and selected the first word. "Radioactive," I muttered. I waited as the screen processed my entry. No luck there. Still, who expected success on the first go? I tried again, this time selecting retroactive. No luck, but I was at least eliminating some of the words, or thousands, in the dictionary. Yeah, I was getting nowhere.
"Perhaps you should try that one, Elder Inkwell,"
Mustang suggested, pointing at interactive. I supposed it was worth a shot. I mean, it was only one of 7 other words. What were the odds of it actually working? Access granted. Success! The screen finally cleared and entered the menu, just as Crosshair entered. The zebra sniper glanced at both of us before walking over. "Did I miss anything?" he asked, looking around the room, probably for something to look through. "Not much, Cross. We figured out the password, and we've just got into the system." Cross nodded, taking a position at my side so he could view the screen. I went through the first few layers of the menu, idly searching for places of interest. I paused when I reached the joint company option.
"Joint company options? As in pre-war joint operations? We should investigate. This may be what we've been looking for,"
Mustang commented. Selecting the option, a short list of companies came up. Stable Tech Joint Operations, General Aromatics, Collaborative Works, Western Equestrian Armaments Project. Stable Tech, I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Stable Tech!" I repeated, practically squeeing, earning some funny looks. You have to understand, this company was one of those major corporations that had their hooves in all kinds of tech development. I selected the Stable Tech option and watched the screen flicker and fill. "It's a map of Wintertrot?" "Yes. See there, there's a few public access terminals," Crosshair said, pointing as he leaned over my shoulder. "And look there. There's the TIT building we're in." I ignored Crosshair for the moment, my eyes being drawn to a series of red markers scattered around Wintertrot. Each of the red spots had a single letter, or series of them, giving them some form of designation.
1 to 13.
Mustang mumbled.
A series of locations marked 1 to 13 under the stable tech option.
Mustang's voice began to rise in excitement. I felt a smile creep upon my own face as I began to realize what he meant.
There could be 13 stables in Wintertrot.
There could be 13 stables in Wintertrot. There are 13 death traps in Wintertrot. We all shouted in unison. Mustang and myself pausing as we replayed the last sentence in our heads.
13 death traps,
Crosshair repeated, stamping a hoof for emphasis. Mustang quirked his head in confusion. Death traps? I thought they performed well enough. Most of Stabletech's fallout bunkers functioned correctly. Isn't that so, Elder Inkwell? It was technically true. A large number of stables succeeded and incubated the ponies inside who would emerge and repopulate the wasteland. But then you had those stables that conducted bizarre social environmental experiments, some of which released crazy stable dwellers or abominations out into the wasteland. Regardless of the risks, I wanted to see these stables. They were built by another company, or at least in cooperation with another company. How bad could these stables be? I am confident these stables will be 100% safe, I declared, receiving mixed reactions from the two. Mustang looked excited at the prospect of stable exploration, while Crosshair threw his forelegs up and walked out of the room. Doomed. We are all doomed, Crosshair declared as he left. Cross, I'm sure it'll be fine. I was cut off as Crosshair popped his head back into the room. Doomed! Celestia, damn it all, Crosshair, give it a rest. I looked at the screen, realizing we had another problem. And some pony find me something to draw on. I really needed a mapping module, or at least a pip buck for maps like this. We rested that night, Mustang taking the first watch, much to Crosshair's silent annoyance. I could tell he was suspicious of Mustang, and, well, I was too. You don't just run into strange, heavily armored stallions. He had some kind of agenda, I was sure of. Suspicions were pushed aside as I awoke, feeling not exactly refreshed, more like I was rested from a quick nap. The scent of cooking food awoke me, Mustang standing by a small travel stove he had set up on the terminal panel. Fat crackled and sizzled in that frying pan.
Ah, Inkwell, good to see you're awake,
Mustang said while flipping the frying pan's contents.
Breakfast will be served shortly, Elder. Perhaps you could get the plates for me? They're in my saddlebag.
I nodded, rubbing the sleep out of my eyes before I groggily walked over to Mustang's saddlebag. The first saddlebag was bulging with belts of spare ammunition for Hailstorm, neatly packed with a surprising amount of care. I went to the other saddlebag and found the plates inside a clear plastic bag. I was about to levitate them out when my eyes drifted over the rest of his saddlebag. Most of it was various knickknacks that Crosshair had plundered to sell later. But what caught my eye was two suitcases. One rather large and blocky like brick, the other was like a business pony's briefcase. I found myself reaching a tentative, steel-clad hoof towards the blocky container. As soon as my hoof came in contact with it, my eardrums started ringing with Mustang's voice.
Don't!
His booming voice echoed through the corridors, likely alerting every monster, raider, and would-be bandit within a 10-block radius. I turned slowly, still recovering from the shock, to find a rather panicked Mustang, levitating a hot frying pan.
Terribly sorry, Elder. That box is very personal. Yes, personal to me.
He grinned sheepishly, eyes darting to the frying pan repeatedly in what I hoped was him just checking the food. I'm the one at fault, Paladin Mustang. Elders shouldn't go, performing unauthorized searches. Smooth. Where did you learn that Canterlot voice spell? Before I could get a response, we faintly heard Crosshair galloping down the hallways. I decided to try and act like nothing happened. I levitated 3 plates out of the plastic bags. Mustang smiled, dishing out 3 portions as Crosshair peeked into the room, guns ready. Did I miss anything? He asked, giving myself and Mustang accusing looks. I could have sworn that you were trying to attract snow pirates with all that racket. I felt my interest piqued, and was about to ask about these snow pirates when I smelled food. Glorious. Glorious pre-war pancakes. Their golden brown deliciousness demanded my attention. I tuned out Mustang and Crosshair and devoured the best breakfast I have had in years. We left Trotworth Independent Technologies as soon as we finished eating. We were all a little tense upon leaving, though. Crosshair scouted ahead from time to time, or Mustang scanned the frost-coated windows and dark alleyways. Not much happened until we came across a crude metal signpost, a recent addition to the landscape. Compared to everything else, the overly large rivets stapled the sign to the wall. There was an open street beside it. Mustang had wandered over to it as I brushed away the ice and snow. Once clear, I could make out what the sign said, the words being composed of old metallic letters. Snow Ridge. Huh. Snow Ridge. You know anything about that place, Cross? Ah, Snow Ridge. Yes. It's a small trading outpost where ponies lighten their loads before moving on to bigger settlements like Steelwall, Crosshair explained, his eyes darting to the windows and buildings around us. I realized Mustang had vanished, yet again. Only this time, he hadn't vanished around some corner. Following his hoofprints, we found him staring at an old gray wall that looked like 3 different graffiti artists disagreed with one another and tried to write over each other's messages with limited success. Fuck Lou was written above one of the first messages, cutting off abruptly as some pony, probably the second artist, arrived. Celestia defends, Luna protects, the second message proclaimed, carved into the stone wall in a long jagged line, as if trying to obliterate the previous messages. Fuck to Sentinel, the third clearly below average artist had written, probably sure in the knowledge that he wouldn't actually meet this Sentinel. Something wrong, Mustang? I asked, noting the strange smile he had on his muzzle.
Ha! No, Elder, nothing's wrong. Just feeling a little nostalgic.
Okay, so my star paladin was an advocate of graffiti art?
I ran across an identical carving in Manhattan once, though not nearly as old as this one.
Well, that was a small relief. At least I didn't have to worry about Mustang stopping to admire each wall. Can we go now? I feel exposed, standing out in the cold like this. I nodded at our striped sniper, letting Crosshair lead the way as I marched alongside Mustang. The snow crunched beneath my armored hooves, the sound seeming to echo out into the streets around us. Each step made me feel like I was ringing a Luna-damned dinner bell. My EFS wasn't reporting much, besides several yellow blips that were flying around each other at a manic pace. Crosshair remained vigilant, scanning the frost-coated windows for any sign of an ambush. My helmet's EFS could pick up practically any threat, but I had a sneaking suspicion that Crosshair would likely be able to pick out any potential threats the helmet system missed. Crosshair led us through a series of streets and alleyways. Pausing once, we realized that some pony had blocked the route forward. Some pony had overturned several large carriages to bar access to Stone Ridge. Likely bandits or some gang or tribe that had once run the toll booth of some sort. Before us was an old library that traders and travelers had likely traveled through after being fleeced of their goods. Spread out, Rangers! Let's find us a way through, I ordered. The little pony inside of me clapped his hooves together as Mustang and Crosshair began looking around. I, of course, participated. It would set a bad example. The worst kind of leaders are always the ones who let everyone else do all the work. At least, that's what my dad always used to say. Hard to decide if he'd be proud or angry with me. Probably a bit of both, honestly. Looking around, some serious efforts had been made to turn this place into a deliberate killing ground. The old auto carriages, chariots, and skywagons littered the landscape had been pushed together tightly. Chunks of concrete and lumps of ice had been used to fill the gaps someone might use to escape. The area was dotted with signs of old battles. Broken guns too damaged to be of any use lay discarded, even some in pieces. Some heavier firepower had been brought to bear at some point, judging from one of the sides of the large holes and blown out husks of some of the auto carriages. A tattered rag flew from a jutting pole, some symbol or another one embossed on the damp fabric. Curious, I pulled the rag down with my magic and wrung it out, before unfolding it. The rag had several bullet holes, and time and the weather had not been kind to it, but I was able to make out an image. It looked like a pony's skull that was being pierced with a sword.
Ah, what have you found, Elder?
Mustang asked, literally about 2 inches away from my face, totally not making me jump. Okay, maybe a little. He wrapped the tattered flag in his own mint-green aura and scrutinized it, tilting his head slightly. It's some kind of flag, Star Paladin. I don't suppose you recognize the symbol? Mustang shrugged, shaking his head before he elaborated.
Can't say I do, Elder. Maybe it's an old Raider war banner. I've known them to form into cohesive forces with their own symbols on occasion.
Crosshair returned, giving the tattered flag a quick glance before looking at me. Elder, there seems to be no way through. It's clear this old route isn't used for a reason. I hoped to avoid potential ambushes by using the old trade route. So that explained the lack of ponies and raiders in the area. I knew it was too quiet. It seems we'll then have to backtrack to get to the old main road. The library door is frozen shut. Before I could gripe about having to walk all the way back around the dead streets, Mustang spoke first.
Knight Crosshair, do you recognize this curious flag the Elder found?
Crosshair paused, his mouth forming a thin line as he gave us the mother of all poker faces. That flag. It belongs to the Snow Pirates. My zebra friend's voice was utterly flat. His eyes narrowed as he glared at the flag, possibly hoping to burn through it if he glared hard enough. I looked over to Mustang, finding him to be staring back at me with equal confusion. Snow Pirates. What exactly are they? Like, some gang or tribe? Crosshair tittered, shaking his head slowly. Oh, Elder. Since when do raiders or gangs take the time to build blockades this good? Crosshair pointed around us. The construction was above what I'd expect from gangs or raiders back south. No. Snow pirates are a lot worse than some gang. They've got big guns, and they're not afraid to use them. It wouldn't be in our best interest to draw their attention. I really needed to get something to make log entries on. I had a whole lot of stuff I needed to remember about Wintertrot. Snow pirates, now on my mental list of things that would want to kill me. Anyway, I stated, before an awkward silence could rear its ugly head, this dreary talk is hardly productive. Show me that door, Nightcross. I'll have us inside in moments. Crosshair raised one brow before turning and trotting over to the library. The building, just like everything else, was coated in a layer of ice. The door handles buried under several inches of it, in fact. As you can see, Elder, I cannot exactly pick it, and our star paladin does not have a key for this lock. I saw Crosshair's eyes flicker behind me, probably at Mustang. I didn't have time to address my clearly jealous and clingy first knight. Key, Crosshair? I powered on my magi drill, plunging the hoof-mounted disemboweler into the solid block of ice, watching it as it melted in a very satisfying manner. The drill gnawed through the brass handles and lock, slivers of wood pinging harmlessly off my armor, while Crosshair retreated a few steps from the shower of splinters. The door finally gave in, and ice seemed to be the only thing holding it shut as the double door slammed flat in front of me. I don't need no key, I said with a smirk over my shoulder. I'll make my own door. Mustang was laughing, clapping his hooves before trotting over to me.
Ha ha ha! Bravo, Elder! Bravo! No mere door should impede our journey.
He patted me on the back. The impact made my power armor's reinforced legs buckle a little. No ice or snow either. Kill him, Night Crosshair. I'll lead us through the library. Crosshair muttered something, but I was too busy getting my wind back to hear him properly. That, and a lot of my attention was also going to not look like Mustang had just punched me in the gut. Old paper crinkled and flapped as the wind was let inside. Old rotted books lay in piles, the pages seemingly glued together, the weight of the paper turning them into damp mounds. I silently lamented the all-too-familiar sight of vast swaths of knowledge lost forever, and instead paid attention to several blips that had shown up and then vanished on my helmet's HUD. I brought a hoof up and dinged my helmet. The spell jolted back into working order. The damnable cold was interfering with the suit's systems. I was about to take off my helmet and see if I could find the extent of the damage when something sharp scraped my horn. The thing most ponies don't tell you about unicorn horns is that they're particularly sensitive to pain. It's It's not just a piece of bone that I channel my magic through. Ah, cocknoodles, what was that? I asked, my EFS failing to pick up any dangers. But my question was soon answered by the frenzied fluttering of bloat sprites. A dozen of those little flying devils had been hiding up in the rafters, waiting for prey, presumably. The ugly pests buzzed around us, firing their spines at us. Crosshair already moved to distance himself from the bugs. His eyes narrowed as he overturned an old desk and ducked behind it. Mustang immediately leapt into the fray, clapping his hooves together and squashing one of the insects like a water balloon.
Foolish insects! You strike at Star Paladin Mustang and the Rangers of Wintertrot! Prepare to perish!
Mustang called out, trying to swat more of the pests out of the air. I drew out my sawed-off. The weapon was loaded with pellets and would disintegrate these pests in an instant. I aimed for a cluster of 3 bloat sprites, the shotgun report roaring far too loudly. Well, the good news was I killed one of the bloat sprites. The bad news was I blew open some kind of nest. One of the damp mounds of book and paper had been struck, unleashing a flurry of torn pages and a swarm of vile insects. Bloat sprites piled up around us as Crosshair picked them off one by one with a zebra rifle. The insects spread fire to one another in a rather delightful fashion. Mustang had grown annoyed as his skin was punctured again and again by dozens and dozens of tiny little barbs. I rolled to the right, closer to Crosshair as we unleashed havoc. Bloat sprites popped and burst in mid-flight, far more efficiently than Crosshair I could have ever hoped to achieve. Gray and blue ichor shred puffy flesh, and thin, flimsy wings rained down all around us. Any remaining bloat sprites had flown away into the safety of the bookshelves or scurried into their nests. Well, that was unexpected. How are you both holding up? Still fit for battle after that scuffle? I asked, glancing at Mustang worriedly as he drank a healing potion with several spines still embedded in his flesh. I am fine, Elder. They were just frost sprites after all. Ah, frost sprites. Another lovely addition to the rapidly expanding list of things I hate in Wintertrot. Though, I do not recall giving any medicine to our star paladin. He gave Mustang an annoyed look, and the beefy stallion shrugged his shoulders, smiling widely.
Fear not, First Knight. That was one of my own potions. I brought a generous number of them with me if you're low on medicine.
Crosshair snorted in annoyance, but said no more. I noticed the frost sprite spines piled around Mustang and levitated one over for a closer look. The spine was thin and blue with a pointed tip. It appeared to be coated in ice. I snapped the thin spine in half, revealing that it actually was a tiny icicle. I think it is best that we move on, Elder. Snow Ridge shouldn't be much farther now. I nodded in affirmative, letting Crosshair lead the way once more. The final trek to Snow Ridge took about an hour. We didn't encounter anything that could kill us, but we did see a cluster of shambling ghouls pressed against a frozen door, trying in vain to get at us. Snow Ridge wasn't exactly what I had been expecting, a decently defended stop where traders could sell some of their goods. I approached the guards at the gate, trying to imitate how I'd seen other Steel Rangers approach such settlements. Head upright, stomp hooves purposefully, and above all, look like you're in charge. Not exactly an easy task when you're walking next to a green unicorn built like a brick wall. I did my best to loom as I stomped purposefully over to the guard on the right. I require access to this trading post. The guard nearly wet his barding watching all 3 well-armored stallions approach the gate and address him. I noticed his partner pushing a box hastily beneath a nearby tarp. The faint jingling of bottle caps rattled inside. I was immediately suspicious on the rattling caps. It's usually not like guards to just hoof out free money to visitors like this. Most likely they were taxing random visitors. Most likely they were traders, or other small groups traveling together. Not a problem, sir. Have a nice stay, the guard blurted, his eyes flickering back to his partner and the box of money. My inner greedy pony began rubbing his metaphorical hooves together. I could tell I was going to fit in right at home in this town. Thank you, citizen. You have a nice day now. It never hurt to be polite, and the expression on the pony's face was worth it alone. I strutted into the settlement, the guards already muttering to one another in tones of bewilderment. Once inside, we took a moment to observe our surroundings. 3 high walls, either made up from old auto wagons and chariots, or slabs of concrete, that had been dragged into vaguely rectangular shapes. The walls connected to a grocery store which seemed to act as a motel, judging from the wagons and transportation parked outside. Just outside of the grocery, a small, tightly packed market comprised of wooden or scrap metal stalls, wagons, and tents offered us a place to shop. Not that I intended to buy much. We were mainly here to lighten our saddlebags and pick up the essentials.
Elder Inkwell, I need to acquire fresh ammunition. I spent about 2/3 of my reserves in the last 4 days,
our star paladin explained, showing me several belts of spent minigun rounds. Why he was holding on to them was a bit of a mystery.
I too need more. This rifle of mine is a glutton for ammunition.
All right. If Mustang and Crosshair were both going through this ammo quickly, I'd need to keep an eye out for some alternative firearms for the both of them. Very well, Mustang. Crosshair. Stick together. I'm counting on both of you to pick up food, medicine, ammo, and pretty much anything else we need. Mustang and Cross shared an odd look with one another, clearly unhappy with being stuck together. But they'd need to get used to it if they were going to travel with me.
And where will you be, Inkwell? Going to see a doctor, I hope. You're still recovering, after all.
Crosshair locked his eyes with mine. The fierce orange irises brooked no argument. I'd go to the doctor, not because I was afraid of him, but because I could get myself a Medix while I was there. Of course, Knight Crosshair. What a silly question. Of course I'm going for a checkup. Crosshair gave me a suspicious look before nodding, turning and leaving with Mustang, who offered a quick wave salute. I watched them both wander off, waiting to see if Mustang or Crosshair would double-check. When neither of them did, I let off a sigh of relief and began trotting over the first medicinal vendor I could see. I navigated through a few stalls, seeing miscellaneous junk, pausing here and there to offload some of the valuable scrap we'd picked up on our travels. I saw the familiar Ministry of Peace logo over the doctor's tent and trotted up to it, seeing a table before me with a veritable array of goods.
See something you like there, partner?
A very rough and somewhat exhausted voice asked. I looked up from the table of goods, pulling my eyes from the Medix vials, only to recoil and draw my sawed-off shotgun. Before me stood a ghoul, and not just any ghoul, one of the ones I'd encountered in the tunnels. No, his coat was ice blue, the skin beneath it a sickly blue color that looked like somebody had dyed his skin. His body was covered in a large brown winter coat that was in surprisingly good condition, and a brown fedora sat upon his head, his horn poking through the hole in the hat. His empty eye sockets glowed with a ghastly white light, giving him a particularly unnerving look. As if the glowing eyes weren't bad enough, the skin at the tip of his muzzle was gone, exposing his teeth and nostrils. The ghoul took a drag of a cigarette hanging comically from the left side of his face, and seemed unfazed by the sawed-off shotgun that was waving in front of him.
Is there something on my face, Smoothcoat?
The ghoul asked, chuckling to himself as he moved the shotgun aside with his own magic.
He's all right, boys. He's obviously a tourist.
Several weapons clicked as they were put into safety. I turned slowly, noting that 15 security ponies had guns trained on me. The security ponies seemed to disappear back into the background, waiting for trouble to strike up again. Wait, who are you calling a tourist? I asked.
You, Smoothskin. You clearly haven't ever seen a Wintertrot ghoul, or at least not a smart one. Besides that, you're clearly from somewhere else. Your stance, accent. Clever ponies like me pick up that kind of stuff, you know.
Okay. This guy was kind of starting to creep me out.
But enough small talk. If these light bulbs I call eyes don't deceive me, I'd wager that you're one of them Steel Rangers.
I felt myself tense up slightly. It's not like we Rangers have a good reputation as a whole. I kept my magical grip on my shotgun, just in case. Maybe. What's it to you? I asked.
Well, it's not what you can do for me. It's what I can do for you.
Classic sales pitch. I steel myself for a long spiel of offers.
I just happen to know the location of a stable nearby.
I sighed in relief, chuckling much to the confusion of my ghoulish acquaintance. You're out of luck, friend. I already had the location of 13 stables. I paused, letting him think he had nothing I wanted. I do need some medics, though. but I'm not exactly desperate for it. I could see the gears click in his head as he began working out a price. I beat him to the punchline. 30 caps a syringe and no more, I stated, stamping a hoof for emphasis. The ghoul nodded, puffing over 3 syringes of sweet relief, which reminded me I was supposed to go see the local doctor about healing my injuries. You wouldn't happen to be a doctor, now would you? I asked the ghoul. He tittered, shaking his head as he counted my caps.
Me? The doctor. Want to go see Slicer. He runs the clinic.
Slicer? Sounded like some mad butcher, or worse, a raider. Still, if he was the doc, then I had little choice but to deal with him. I trotted away in search of a medical checkup and maybe some parts for my trusty shotgun. To be continued.